Well, hello, and thanks for your interest in all this. I'm sorry I can't be with you. By the time you're meeting, I'll be in Peru, funnily enough. I'm out in Australia at the moment. I've been working up in Hunter Valley, and today and tomorrow in Bondi Beach. But I thought the bottles of booze or the beach bodies, would be a bit distracting. So I've just driven around the corner. I'm just on the edge of Manly Beach here. So, with a background that's not distracting, let's focus a bit and let's talk about learning and sport. That is not unreasonable for you to say, and probably I'm keeping you from either the bar or your bed. So crack on, Stephen. You might say, what's new learning got to do with sport? Well, the answer might begin with what sport's got to do with new learning. And the reason I'm rushing all around the world at the moment is because there's an enormous interest in doing learning better. I'm building schools in Peru, in Taiwan, in the Emirates, and here in Australia, all over the place, and universities and colleges. And as many of you know, I work with a number of the elite athletes and elite coaches in Team GB, and for that matter, helping out with the England rugby team, and so on. And the reason is that what we learn from Dave in cycling, from Eddie perhaps in rugby, certainly from the hockey gang, the netball folk, Sparky over there in sailing over some years, what we learned was the the aggregation of marginal gains makes things better. But we also learn you don't do marginal gains one at a time. It is the full set that we're really shooting for. And of course, there are little algorithmic links between if you improve this and you improve this together, the improvement, the sum of the parts would give you this much, the multiple of the parts gives you loads. So I've been applying that to learning, and it turns out it works. We've been looking in detail at all the little things that make learning better, which I'll come to in a moment. But so, having got to the point where we can make learning better, a lot better, what's that got to do with sport? Well, the improvement in learning has given a sort of triple whammy to sport. I mean, first of all, because we can learn better, we know things faster and deeper, and we know rather more complicated things than we knew before because we're learning better. And in sport, that includes diet, it includes ice baths, that includes the kind of algorithm of tactical conversations and so on. So, first of all, better learning means we know more, and thus, of course, in sport, there's more to learn. I'm pretty old, but these are lines here, and my early sporting prowess, which clearly has slipped away a little bit at the moment, but certainly it was pretty straightforward coaching regime. We knew this and we knew that. If this, then that, easy peasy. Now, just getting all that knowledge into our heads is a challenge. Secondly, because we can learn better and we know more and more people are good at sport. You'll see that in soccer, for example, where we can make people fit, we can give them a good diet, and we can train them, but the knowledge combined with experience that's in those heads means that soccer players can stay on the top of their game for a lot longer, David Beckham and beyond. And that means there's just more people good at sport. I mean, what's happening roughly in your head is about 90% of the neurons up there are just kind of noticing things and putting little memories onto shelves and tidying up, and a bit like a library, really. But pattern matching is what the last little bit of your brain does. You think if you drove to the event you're enjoying now, I don't expect you thought about steering or hand signals. Well, they don't do hand signals anymore, but steering or pressing the pedal. When you learn to drive, that was flipping difficult. You're pedal pressing, you're steering, and trying to know where to look. Oh, mirror, signal, maneuver. Now you're just on autopilot. But if as you're driving along, you see on the other side of the road, you see a mum walking on with a couple of kids and a dog. The dog's not on the lead. The kids look a bit nippy. Mum looks a bit distracted. And there's a bus coming the other way. In your brain, you think, hello, I know about kids running away from mums. I know about kids chasing dogs. I know about dogs running across the road. I know how slow buses are to stop. Putting all that together, I see danger. I'm going to slow down. Now, you've never actually been in a situation where two kids chased a dog across the road and the bus swerved and killed everybody, but you've pattern matched enough to put it all together. And it turns out that pattern matching, that ability to make sense of the unexpected, is something that allows people to stay in their best form, to stay at the top of their game for a lot longer than they were before. So, short version is learning has put more people into sport, and of course, it's allowed countries that were never there before, swapping knowledge and understanding through social media. Flipping heck, everybody's in it. Here I am on the start line. Where these guys come from? So, also, we've got less time to get that knowledge in our heads because the training regime is more complex. There's more to fit in. There's a whole mass of, and back in the days of, javelin throwing, I was quite a competitive javelin thrower once. You turned up with your spear and you gave it a mighty chuck, worried about where your shoulder went, and you follow through and your footwork done. Now of course you've got the complexity of the aerodynamics of the thing, the material science, the recovery. We've got all that, and because there are more people, you've got to train harder. So, short version of all this is better learning has caused us a bit of a challenge in sport, and of course, we can harness that better learning to solve the challenge. So let's look at some of the details. I'm not going to chat for long because you're probably already watching the oyster fishermen dragging things ashore and licking your lips and thinking, wouldn't mind a bit of that. But let's just run through a bit of it quickly. And if you're interested, I'll give you some links and references at the end. At Stephen Heppel on Twitter, easy peasy to find. Join in. You'll find a lot of this stuff on a daily basis. So let's start with the details of the environment. Basically, you put a bunch of athletes in a room, sit them on a chair. Just checking that's one of ours. One of the things about Australia is, I don't think we're about to be attacked by ISIS or anything like that, but there is the odd polar bear dropping out of the tree and a few brown snakes shooting up my trouser legs, so I'd better keep eyes and ears open. However, in the physical environment, if I put a bunch of athletes in a room, put up a projector or a screen and talk to them all facing the same way, there's a number of things that get in the way, really, of them optimizing their learning. I mean, beyond boredom, And I hope I'm saying this, you're probably all sitting in a row watching me on a screen. Oh, flip. Well, first of all, the light levels really matter. You can download a lux meter on your phone and measure the light levels. I mean, here, we're just coming up to sunset. It's winter, so sort of late afternoon. But I checked before we started. I've got about 11,500 lux out here. And for your brain to be focused on message, you're only looking for 500 lux, so not so hard. But I bet if one of you downloads a light meter while I'm chatting and test out the room you're in, you'll probably be disappointed. Under 500, it's hard. It's hard. And secondly, if there's a bunch of you in a room, the door's shut, you're all, reasonably fit, so you're processing oxygen pretty fast. Oxygen in, CO2 out. Within a very short time, the CO2 number of parts per million goes above about 2,200, which is the point when your brain starts to go walkabout. So it's too dark, you're gassing yourself with your own emissions, so to speak. And temperature really matters too. 18 to 21, that's the zone, that's the sweet spot for learning. Once it goes above 21, we know that for complex things like mathematics, every degree above 21 degrees, your performance as an intellect goes down. If you were a kid doing a maths exam, by the time you get to 23 degrees, I can be reasonably precise, you're about 1.8% worse in terms of your mark than you would have been in a cooler room. It's not so bad at the cold end, but as it gets warmer, every degree it goes up, it gets worse by the same amount. It's a straight line, not a vertical line, but a straight line. And then there's sound, which of course, if there's a disco going on next door, but it's not just sound; it's the rhythm of sound. Once the beats per minute are too quick, and your brain really struggles. And of course, if you're in a room with a ventilator, air conditioning unit, or just somebody tapping their feet annoyingly, all this impacts on the ability for what the coach is saying to stick in the heads of the people who want to be applying it. And then beyond that and beyond that and beyond that, we know that picking things up and putting them down, the physicality of learning is pretty important. If I pick up, where's the shelf, funnily enough, damn, it's empty. Something about picking it up, there's something about the length through my hand, up through my shoulders into my brain that helps me to remember. And then there's the social cues and clues. If you think back to your best learning days, maybe as kids, you had a teacher who came in, wore something eccentric, I don't know, sort of had a hood, was a bit hippie, or I don't know, or she was always, just a bit crazy, really. There's something about those moments of social exception that made the memory stick. So if your coach is sitting there in standard kit uniform, in a dark room, it's too hot, with a fan rattling away in the background, the door shut, you slowly, the CO2 is like being in a pool, it slowly comes to, you drown, you haven't got a hope of remembering things. And then we know very clearly that physical movement impacts on your brain. I mean, common sense says, if you start flexing your muscles, a bit of oxygen-rich blood whizzes down your arms and goes round around your body, and some of the oxygen gets to your brain. Good job. And if you don't move, most of the blood goes to your bottom, really, because it's trying to pad out your bum, especially if the seats are hard, and not much is happening up there above the chin. So, sure, the short version of this, and then we could talk about just the details of this all day, is that the physiology of learning is pretty complex, but not hard. We know how to do it really well. We know what the optimum arrangements are. People are moving, some kinetics, some ventilation, some dot, dot, dot. Secondly, the way in which you talk to people, the way in which you interact with them, the extent to which you give them voice and vote, the way you kind of stick your hands in your pockets and stand back and say, girls and gals, what do you think? What do you think? Here's the challenge, And there's a whole lot of complexity. 50 years of good social science research clarifies the complexity, but there's a whole lot of complexity about how you can make learning memorable. And most of it, in a quick talk, most of it is about owning. It's about me thinking I'm here not to be told, but to be asked and to be given the information and to share it and to process it and to critique it, and and to be part of that job of teaching and learning. So there's a guy just walking over the beach. No worries, mate. You carry on. That's it's his beach. Um, so the pedagogy, as they call it, of teaching and learning is a complex thing, but most of it is about democratizing the experience. And if you're thinking about the room in which you're doing that, if you're all sitting in chairs facing one way, there's a whole set of sort of cues and clues that say, I am the lecturer person, you are the listening people, and there's our roles. Whereas if I got three screens in the room, there's a moment at which you're going to share with each other and do some presentation. You want to start thinking about the zoning of that learning experience, which is complex. Cheers, mate. Hey, end of the day, people are swimming ashore, and then perhaps finally it gets really complex, I think, because what is it that we're trying to learn? Is it just knowledge? I mean, of course, I need to know stuff. I can't sail a boat if I don't understand physics. I can't trim the sails. I can't make parts smaller and lighter if I don't understand engineering. I can't plot my tactics if I'm not very good at chess. I'm going to be hopeless without some knowledge of meteorology. So of course I got to know stuff. But for sport, the challenge is how do I apply that not to the situations that I anticipate, but the situations that are a surprise. You know, Podiums are made by people coping with the unexpected, making the least mistakes or the best of the new challenges that are facing them. It's just that's the way it is, and that means oh, sorry about that. I think you just swallowed a mosquito. Yeah, it's that time of day. I should have brought a beer down with me, but I didn't. Forgive me for being a bit husky. At least it wasn't a koala bear. Well, they call them drop bears around here, so I would have noticed one of them. So this coping with the unexpected is really, really important. Over here in Australia, they have a guy, Stephen Bradbury. You Google him if you don't know him, who won gold medal in the speed skating in the Olympics, and of course Australia has no record of excellence in speed skating, and Stephen was pretty good. And but he was lucky enough to make the final because in his heat, um, pretty much everybody fell over, and the one who didn't fall over beat him, but he was disqualified for knocking the others over. So Stephen's like, I'm in the final. But his approach to the final was really interesting, and you know, spoiler alert, he won gold. And over here in Australia, he makes a good living going around doing inspirational talks. But actually, if you play the video of him in that final, his eyes are the things to watch. He knows he can't win. He's not fast enough to beat anybody in the final. But he's going to be the most ready if something goes wrong. And his eyes are looking, and of course, something goes wrong. It's a crazy Korean, crashes. Well, you saw it enough in the last Winter Olympics. Poor old police. Um, and he's ready. And instead of going around the inside, and which one of his competitors does, and there's no space. Oh, they've all fallen over. I go around the inside, crash. Another one bites the dust. He goes right round the outside and finishes slowly with his hands above his head, waving. But keep watching because the guy who got second place, who was on his back, has enough presence of mind to say, "Well, I'm on my back. I'm still going. If I stick my leg out, I could get silver here," and he does. So how do we learn to be ready for the unexpected? And of course, the answer's obvious. You present people with unexpected situations. You're talking penalty corners in hockey, and you say, "Well, hang on a minute. Here's a different sort of challenge that you've pulled in from, well, maybe Aussie rules football, but there's something about the spatial awareness and the angles and that's relevant, but it's a completely different scenario. So surprising your athletes is really the key way to help them not be surprised in their finals. In the Qingdao sailing in the Beijing Olympics, the American star sailor arrived. Everybody was expecting no wind because the data for 10 years said it ain't going to be windy in August. Except the dear old Chinese, in their lovable way, turned off all the downwind factories, so there was no pollution. And holy moly, the sky was blue, the sun was warm, the land heated up, the wind rushed in from the sea. One of the windiest Olympics we'd ever seen. The American star sailor who'd arrived with an extra short boat ready for these light wind conditions. And by the way, for 2 days was looking good. I think he was lying second after 2 days. um, the wind blew and just blew him away, really. He ended up, I don't know, somewhere hideous. And he said rather nicely after the event, I was expecting the unexpected, but never expected this. So you've got to get your guys and gals to expect the most unexpected, and be confident if they find themselves like the swimmers in the London. They find themselves on, standing ready to go, and a wall of sound hit them because the swimming building they built extra wings on. They seem to just amplify the sound. I remember the Aussie team came out and went, whoa, and hardly anybody PB. They did disappointingly for Australian swimmers. But our guys went, hello, we weren't expecting this. Here's our chance. And that's the third bit, really. So, look, I'll stop. You need to go to the bar or whatever. But, the key thing here is learning has given us a triple whammy in sport. You know what they are. You can rewind the tape. But we know how to do it better. And, of course, the science of learning, which has come on so fast, but isn't quite as hasn't come on quite as well as sport. And I've just started a project in Spain. I'm a professor in UCJC in Madrid, by the way. I should have said at the beginning. But we've just started a project on what should you eat before an exam. What's the best breakfast? And it's curious, isn't it? 900 children a year do exams. Nobody's thought to say, what should you have for breakfast? Is it porridge or a banana or whatever? Well, I mean, you could stick a banana in every orifice you've got on the morning of your exam. The potassium ain't going to get through to your brain in time. But we're learning fast. And so, really, the takeaway from this is learning is going to be a key differentiator in sport, in elite sport performance going forward. And while learning's allowed the rest of the world to catch up, and some old guys like me to hang on there a bit more competitive than they were, it gives you the chance to give your athletes and yourself that edge to get ahead of the field. We're good at learning in Britain. We're better than they are in Australia. So it's our edge and it's our opportunity. You want to know more? Heppel.net is my website. At Stephen Heppel, you'll get the spelling from somebody, no doubt. And happy to come and talk to all of you in a bit more detail, including looking at the physical spaces that you're building for your coaching. I'd better go. I think, luckily, I bought a bottle of wine in the Hunter Valley, and I can't allow it to go warm. So I better go and do my stuff. And plus, the parrots are getting a bit noisy. So listen, bye for now. Thanks for listening. Sorry I can't be there, but hey, this isn't a bad second best. Bye now.